Well, hello there, empowered principals. Welcome to day 4 of Released. We are inching our way towards empowerment. I hope you have found each and every session to be healing, to be progressing your forward motion. And I know it's not linear. I know. And we are taking these courses at fairly quick clip. So, welcome to day 4. Day 4, I am excited to share with you, is all about expansion. It's about expanding yourself and growing your capacity to hold tension and pressure, growing your mindset, your belief in yourself, growing your skill set in the actions that you take and the skill set in which you take them, and growing your identity and having your identity be in alignment with the new version that you are becoming. So we're expanding today. Session 3 was on the exploration. We talked about just exploring things, not really committing to them or taking any action, but just exploring and cracking open the nut, cracking open the options, just looking at them through all of the different lenses. And as you start to look through those lenses, what you'll notice is that some of them feel more expansive. They feel more true, or they feel more right. They feel more aligned. And that's what day 4 is going to be about. So welcome. I'm so happy to have you here. I know this is a topic that isn't exactly, it doesn't feel like we should be excited and eager and enthusiastic and successful. Those kinds of emotions aren't coming up when we're processing being released, having been released. But I can assure you that when you go through this process, you will start to feel more in alignment with empowerment. So let's take a look. In the expansion phase, when we're playing around with expansion, we're really leaning into those questions that we asked in the exploration phase. Like, who am I? What do I want to be? How do I want to feel? What did I learn? What were the lessons? What part is my 50%? We're asking all of the questions. And as you're starting to answer those, things will come to the surface. So I know this may not feel like it's in reach now, but I want you to stick with this process. Okay. So let's use the example of when you were a teenager. There was a period in your teenage years in which you were not a driver. You did not identify as a driver. Maybe you had a bike, maybe you had a moped, maybe you had a permit, but you weren't legally certified, licensed, trained to drive a car by yourself. Okay, we've all anybody who's a driver has been through this. You were in, you know, from birth until 16, 17, 18, whenever you got your license, you did not identify as a driver. You would say, like, well, who's going to drive tonight? Who's going to go take us to the movies? Well, I can't drive. I don't drive. I'm not a driver. I don't have my license. You didn't identify, right? So there was the identity beforehand, not a driver, to now, if you are a driver, in fact, and you own a driver's license and you have a car and you drive to work every day and you pick up your kids and you run to the store and you go on vacations or whatever you do with your car, you identify as a driver. You don't think twice about it now. You're just, this is who I am. And if you think back, like you don't sit around thinking about the pain of when you weren't a driver and wanted to be. You just weren't a driver. I couldn't drive this, I don't like this. It sucks. I want to get my license. I can't wait to have my wheels and freedom and all of that to driving. And now that you're just a driver, it's just who you are. You're a driver. I identify as a driver. It's just who I am. Okay. Or you think about childhood, when you are going from when you're young and you're children, you look up to your parents, you listen to them, you honor them, you obey their rules, and you are, integrated into your family's rules and values. And as you grow up and you get a little bit older and you create a sense of awareness and you create a sense of independence in your preteen and teen years, and then eventually you graduate from high school or go to, however you exited high school. Most of us graduated, but there are kids who don't. But they go into the ages of 18 to 22. You're in college, you're kind of in the in between. There's this big rite of passage, like between being in high school and then no longer being in high school, and whether or not you went to college or trade school or university, or you just went and got a job. Like there was a transition period where you were an adult, but not an adult. And then there's a moment where you are, let's say you are in your late 20s, early 30s, and you've got a career and your own home and your own family, or you have a partner and you're living an adult lifestyle. You're no longer under that guidance and influence of your parents like you were when you were a child. You identified as part of that family of origin, and then you have this transition period where you're both, and you still love your family of origin, you're still connected with them perhaps, but you have a new identity. You don't identify as a child anymore. Now, you might have some, past little traumas or little triggers, and we might go back emotionally to some of that stuff, but you you would say my identity is an adult. I'm an adult. I live by my own set of standards and values and rules and philosophies, and I live my life as an adult. That's just who I am. I was a child and now I am an adult. And in the field of education, right? Newbie teachers, our little birdie teachers, brand new teachers. Remember when you were a brand new teacher, brand new educator, and you felt so scared and so new, and you just told everybody, like, I'm just new. I don't know what I'm doing. Help, help, help. Like little birdies, help, help, help. I think of our little newbies that way. They're so eager and they want to learn to fly so badly. And then they get coaching and they get mentorship and they practice and they try and they fail and there's tears and then eventually over time they learn, they grow, they expand their identity, they expand their skill set, they expand their mindset, their belief system about themselves, and they evolve into identifying as a more veteran, more experienced teacher. And that's just who they are. They're not a newbie anymore. They wouldn't call themselves new. They wouldn't call themselves a little birdie, teacher. So this is all about taking stock of all the exploration you did, which is basically just like you were collecting information, you were gathering data to look around and see for yourself which lens feels empowering for me, which feels good. What identity, when I'm just looking at the identities, which one just, yeah, that looks like where I want to go, where I want to take this. Yes, I got released. Yes, that's a part of my identity. Yes, it was painful. I'm grieving and I'm also exploring. I'm also expanding. You're starting to feel a little bit of momentum. So you're getting moments where you're feeling a release. You're not feeling quite so attached. And here's the truth, and I want to acknowledge this. When you have those little fleeting moments of release, like it isn't bothering you quite as much as it did, you've already done the hardest part of being released, the very hardest part, going through the shock, going through the identity quake, having it crumble, grasping, grieving, grasping at wanting to understand who, what, where, when, why, how did this happen? Acknowledging that this has happened, just admitting it to yourself, acknowledging it, allowing it to happen when you don't want it to happen, but allowing it. And then, like, having the courage to start stepping in, feeling all those feels, asking the feelings what's coming up for you, and then going into exploration. It's another bridge you cross when you're like really open to the vulnerability of asking the questions, where's the 50-50 in this for me? It's the hardest thing we'll do. But I promise you, for every listener out there, for every member of this program who's watching this live or watching this replay, or somebody has shared this program with you and you're going through this, If you are willing to go through these steps, truly go through them, you will be able to handle anything that comes your way. And I mean anything. And it brings up so much emotion in me because this work is so personal to me. I was in a situation professionally, which I shared. I've had this happen to me professionally, and I've also had it happen to me personally. So it is personal. Your career development, your career path, your professional journey, it's personal. This work is very personal. It's very emotional. It's very vulnerable. It requires a lot of courage and it requires a lot of trust in yourself, trust in the process. It requires faith outside of you that you will be okay and that it will come. This moment where you start to gain momentum will come to pass. So, not being able to acknowledge this, allow it, consider other perspectives, owning your part, which is just, it's so hard in the beginning. But then you start to feel like you own the part and then you take responsibility for it. That's where you get your empowerment back. Sorry, this work just matters to me so much. But in this moment, this space, there's expansion. And what expansion does is create space. So within this space of expansion, you feel more space. You physically feel more space. Like you physically can feel it in your body. There's more space inside of you to move physically, just to get up and move around, to take a walk, to breathe. You don't feel the heavy weight of an anvil, an anchor, an elephant, that heaviness on your chest quite so much. You feel like a little bit lighter. Emotionally, there's space. You feel a little bit less heaviness, less intensity. The waves, they may come a little less often and a little less intensely, if that's a word, a little less intense. But mentally, your mind starts to clear and it creates some space for you to start thinking about something more than just what happened and how awful it felt. You start to expand a little bit. You start thinking more about your future, more about being present in this current moment, thinking more about how you want to feel today, thinking about where you want to go, what your next steps are. There's just a little more mental space in this expansion space. And from all of that, physically, mentally, emotionally, that you start to expand some space. And then there's more space in your life, in the actions that you take, because you're not consumed, you're not shackled to the grief, to the shock, to the loss, to the anger, to the frustration, to the narrative that you're disempowered and that this is all happening against you and there's no benefit to it and life is over. There's some expansiveness in the actions that you take. You start to feel more space in your life because you're not all consumed by the feelings, the thoughts, the narrative. And from there, you start to expand into other ways of thinking, other perspectives, other ways of feeling, doing, being. I can remember when I was first going through my divorce, which was an absolute identity quake, a total shock, so painful. And in the beginning, the shock it actually just like I think I went into freeze mode. Like I literally felt like I couldn't move physically. I couldn't think. I couldn't feel. It was just total meltdown, like shock. Even though like there was, obviously I got up and I was working and I was robotically going through my life, but inside of me it was frozen. And then I found a coach who is now my life coach and my business coach. She's my mentor. She really guided me through a most difficult chapter. And while she posed questions for me to contemplate, I was the one that had to do the work. I'm the one that had to go through the feelings. And so I had the wherewithal because I had been through this professionally and I didn't recall really how. I wasn't as aware. I wasn't observing myself in real time. But throughout this surprise separation and the surprise divorce, which has layers of complication to it, I had the wherewithal to observe the process I was going through, to be in it, but also to watch myself in it and to notice, like, where am I today? What am I thinking and feeling? What am I doing? What are my thoughts? What are my questions? What are my contemplations? What's my energy level? Like on a scale of 1 to 10, where is my energy today? Where do I feel my capacity is? And it was like, kind of on a little lever. Like some days I maybe could get to 5, but a lot of days I was at 2 or 3. And then I could spike up maybe and get to a 7 to do a Zoom and coach my clients. And coaching makes me so happy. Like I could zip out of the narrative for that length of time and be on. And maybe even then I wasn't a 10, but I was intensely present as a coach because I was going through it and being coached. So I was in it as a client and as a coach at the same time. So I observed this process I'm teaching you. I observed myself go through it because my goal was I don't want to sit in this forever. And I don't want to bypass it or dismiss it. I want to be in it. I want to feel it. I want to honor it. I really want to learn from it. I want to grow myself. I want to own what part of this was mine to own. What part was not mine? What am I going to not take responsibility for? Because I tend to over take responsibility. I think us leaders will take on professionally and personally more than what is in our control and then blame ourselves for something outside of our control. So I really learned how to separate those two and at least look at them and be able to acknowledge the separation. And then I got to this space where there were days I woke up, it was a little lighter. There were days where I felt a little more mental clarity. I felt a little less emotionally dysregulated. I felt like I had some pep in my step, right? I started to expand. And what is so wonderful about this, when you start to feel these little moments of expansion, now you really get to leverage the wisdom that you gained through the hardest parts. So you explore this, but you explored it not from the pain point. So, like, perhaps you were exploring this when your emotions were like, I consider emotions to be on this huge bandwidth, right? They are plus 10, minus 10, and let's say 0 is like fairly neutral. Okay. In the beginning, you might have been feeling like a -8, -9. And so when you ask the questions, you're going through the lens of those emotions. You're looking through the lens of devastation, grief, pain, just intense suffering. And then you start to look at them maybe through some anger or some frustration or some, you get into like, I'm looking at these questions through the lens of curiosity, where you start to really explore. And then you get into a little more ownership. And now you're kind of moving up the emotional scale. And the way you think changes when you're thinking differently and feeling differently and getting curious and exploring the stories and the narratives and the solutions that start to become available to you shift and evolve as well. So you can ask yourself, when you're starting to feel some relief, again, what have I learned? What else have I learned? What about these missteps did I learn? What information have I gained? What have I gleaned about myself? Were there blind spots that I now see, that I now have clarity on? I now have some mirrors that I can look around. I have a broader clarity. And what you do is you're just learning about yourself, about how you handled it, about what you might do differently in the future, and you learn to create more awareness. You're adding lenses, you're adding facets, you're adding like rear view mirrors, side mirrors, just like in a car. And then you can contemplate What are your options? When a situation similar to this, what might I do? So you can explore the skills, the approach you needed to learn so you can apply it to the future. So, what is the wisdom gained? You're exploring what you've learned and really taking note. You're anchoring it in because you don't want to have to go through this lesson again. Nobody does. And even if something like it happens again, it will not be the same experience because you had the courage to go through this the first time. Now, any release does not feel good, right? When we were dating and we were kids or, very young adults and we had our first crush and there was a breakup, devastation, you go through it again. You're still devastated, but you handle it differently than the first time. And then you go through another breakup and then maybe you get engaged and it gets broken. Like who knows? Everybody has a different dating journey, but every breakup, it still hurts. It still stings. But there's wisdom gained from everyone. You evolve, you develop yourself, you mature. And maybe it doesn't take quite as long. Or maybe it takes very little time. Maybe you're like, you know what? Back in the saddle. I'm all about it. Let's go. So, what have you learned? You've learned lessons to apply to future situations, not to avoid future situations. Did you hear me? You're not avoiding future releases, future breakups. You're learning how to apply yourself in a future situation, should it happen again. You've learned how to acknowledge what's happened, how to allow it, how to contemplate it. You've learned that you can handle the pain of a release, of a breakup, of a situation like this. And you don't know that you can handle it until you've handled it. It's like when my mom passed away, I didn't think I could bear, like before she passed, I didn't think I could bear losing her. And I'll tell you this, if you've not lost someone you've loved, or if you have, you'll know, in my experience anyway, the most painful part was the anticipation of losing her. That part was so much harder than the moment that her body passed and her spirit passed on. Once she was gone, there was almost a relief, a closure that happened. We were sad, yes, but she had struggled for 11 years with this terminal illness. She fought it. She did everything the doctor said. She worked really hard. She wanted to be on this planet. She wanted to see her grandkids and her great grandkids. And it still was more painful to anticipate her being gone than it was on the other side of it. There was still pain, but there's something about anticipating pain and suffering and grief and loss than there is at actually living with it. And once you know you can do it, then recently I've lost my father last summer, and a similar situation went down, and I was grieving him in anticipation, but I also knew that I was going to be okay. It doesn't make the feelings go away. Do you see? Even to this day, the feelings don't go away. I'm not afraid of them. I can handle feeling this way, right? That's what you want to. Whew, everybody get their tissues, right? This is the learning. I can handle this. I'm not as afraid of a breakup because I can handle it. I'll put myself back out there on the dating scene. I'll put myself back out there in the, interview pools because I can handle rejection. I can handle being released. I've learned how to hold space for myself. I know when I need some time to go and process. I know when I'm feeling like I need privacy or I need just alone time to go and take care of myself. But then you've also learned how to move past that into looking at different lenses, exploring what you've gained, looking for alternative thoughts and feelings. Looking, when you lost somebody, You think about the beautiful times and the happy memories, and they bring you joy, sadness, and joy all in once. So, the wisdom that you gain is this hurt, this experience hurt, and I'm anchoring in what I've learned. Because it hurt, I'm anchoring in what I learned. I want to learn this forevermore, and I want to know that I can handle whatever comes my way. So, I teach a process to my clients in EPC, which is the Empowered Principal Collaborative. I teach this to my one on one clients. It's called intentional belief building. It's identifying a new identity or belief that you want to believe about yourself. So when you get released, many of us have the thought like, what's going to happen? My future's kind of over. Where will I go? I won't ever get hired again. I'll never get a good reference. We have this very all or none. It's, everything's over. Never going to happen again. But intentional belief building brings you back into empowerment. It's choosing to see the value in the experience. What's in this for me? What can I learn? How can I grow? Where can I take my future? Not that you loved going through it, but you glean value from it. So you're intentionally building up and choosing a narrative that feels more empowering for you. It moves you from this being a victim of circumstance where it happened to you and you're a victim and you don't have any empowerment into becoming a person who has experienced pain and grief and identity quakes and loss, and you took full ownership for it, and you took ownership of the narrative, ownership of the perspective, ownership of the feelings, ownership of the learning, and now you can apply that in the form of empowerment. So I call this going from victim to victor. And a victor, like victory, it's a victor is a person who defeats, who triumphs, who overcomes. That's what this is. We're working to overcome being released, to triumph in the midst of the loss, in the midst of the situation, to defeat the sense of defeat, to overcome feeling defeated. So, a victor mindset, you're looking at what you can handle, what I can handle, what I can overcome, what I am going to learn, what I can figure out. So, not all is lost because you were released. In fact, being released can be the best thing that happened to you because it can show you the gaps. It sheds light on what you thought you couldn't handle. You thought you couldn't handle being released in the beginning, but here you are handling it. You thought that you're never going to overcome this, and hopefully you're getting glimpses of being able to overcome it, seeing yourself as being able to overcome this, and getting into interviews this spring, this summer, landing a job, and then moving on with your empowerment. New chapter, new focus, new school, new position, let's go, right? And I will get in there and I will learn. I have learned and I will apply what I've learned and I will keep on learning. I'm open to learning. I'm going to figure this out. That's a victor mindset. People who are victorious in sports, they don't always win. That's not a victor mindset. A victor mindset is who are you being when you lose? Do you give up? Do you emotionally dysregulate to the point of, unprofessionalism, like what do they call it? Unsportsmanlike conduct? Or can you be in victor mindset when you've lost, knowing it's a part of the journey? So what do victors feel, right? If you were to create a steer cycle for victors, sorry, you can do one for victims, but it is not as empowering as victors. So like they're thinking thoughts about themselves. Their identity is building that they can handle this. They can overcome this. What have I learned? I'm taking the hit. I can handle the hit. meaning I can handle the emotional hit, I can handle the mental chatter, and I can turn the volume down. Victor emotions, they have to have trust even when they fail. Trust themselves. I failed, I'll get up and do it again. I have to have faith. I have to believe that there's a job out there for me, even though I don't see it, I don't feel it, I don't have an offer, I don't even know where I'm going to apply, but there's got to be something out there with my name on it. That's faith. It's believing in advance. You've got to be determined. Be willing to be determined again. You know what's really hard about this is the willingness and openness and resiliency and patience and courage, all of these feelings require us to open ourselves up to pain again. Because you could throw your name back in the hat, get out there into the job pools, right? Go to the job fairs and sign up for interviews, go to an interview. You may get rejected. You may not get the offer. You may get through the second round and then they reject. They say thanks, but no thanks. All over again because you attach to wanting that job. You have hopes. You think this is the one. It's like you talk yourself into it and then they say no, thank you. And you'll have to go through a mini version of this all over again. But a victor gets back up, goes through this process, and then says, okay, here's what I want to believe. Here's how I want to feel. What traits do I want to exhibit? What approach do I want to take? I'm going to keep exploring. Always go back to exploration. If ever you start to feel wobbly, you start to feel a little crunchy, things don't feel a little, they don't feel very stable. Go back to exploring. Questions. What am I learning? What do I want? Where am I headed? What's my identity? What can I learn? From that interview, what can I learn? Give yourself the feedback. You know how you'll email people? Well, can you give me any feedback why I didn't get the job? Sorry, it just wasn't a match. They don't tell you. 99% of the time, you won't get the feedback. You have to be the one who gives your feedback to you. What do I think? What could I highlight a little more? Was it my energy? And I will offer you a class on this. There's a class on getting hired. That's what's coming next, right? I teach this, the energy of your interview. It's not so much what you say, it's how you say it. So, looking at being experimental, taking risks, allowing setbacks and failures, just knowing they're a part of the game because you're in the game. And right now you feel like you're sitting on the bench. You got benched. You're not playing in the game. But are you sitting on the sidelines pouting or throwing your towel or feeling like you're never going to get in or just giving up? Or are you like watching the game, watching the energy, watching the players, watching the other team, trying to figure this out? Coach, I'm back in. Let me go on in. I'm, seeking to understand for yourself, contemplating. What did I learn? What do I think? What do I learn? Staying in momentum, getting the support that you need, but also accepting what is and moving on. Your identity. You're rebuilding it. It's had a quake, it's crumbled, and you're rebuilding it. Not from scratch. You're just taking the parts of what you learned, adding it to who you already are, what you already know, and evolving your identity. So your identity is basically just your thoughts and feelings, your relationship with yourself, who you believe yourself to be. That's what identity work is. It's your self-efficacy. And from that efficacy, we feel inspired, right? As we're growing, our efficacy, when we expand our identity, our self-efficacy expands. That means our belief in our capacity to accomplish something. And that makes us feel more inspired. When we feel more inspired, we have more energy, a lot of emotion, and that's where we create impact. And impact is empowering. It's having agency over your life. It's taking back the experience and making it your own, being the authority of yourself, giving yourself permission to fail and try again, staying in your personal power, leveraging the narrative, creating influence. You can always create the narrative. And when you go into an interview and they ask why you're no longer working at this position, you create the narrative. You create the narrative. And you can do this while you're still working. You can create a positive, healthy relationship in your current district, should you choose, which impacts their narrative. When you handle yourself with empowerment and grace, not out of resentment, not animosity, but genuine reflection, but also genuine respect, they will speak of you so much more favorably when you handle yourself with grace through this release. And you can build up the narrative of who it is you are, who you're becoming, what you've learned. You can create that, and that creates your impact. You will expand as a leader if you are willing to take that path. Right? So your efficacy, it's the capacity to produce the result you want. And the result that you want is to, one, get out of the pain, two, to step back into your empowerment, and then three, ultimately, the outcome you seek is to land an ideal job, a job that's a match for you and you're a match for it. That's what you're looking for. And your self-efficacy is the belief that you can do it. Now, some people will call this confidence. They'll say, like, well, I just don't feel confident. So there's a difference between believing in yourself and confidence. Believing in yourself is, I can do this even when I feel fear, even if I have to exert and implement courage to do it. I believe I can do it. I can do what I set my mind to. That's efficacy. Confidence is, I already know how to do it. I've done it before. I can do it again. Courage comes before confidence. Confidence is the emotion that we feel when we've already accomplished it. That's what we feel afterwards. Courage is what we feel before we've done the thing. So, as you're expanding your identity, here are some questions that you can ask yourself. Who am I because of this? And just this question makes me laugh because I was thinking about when you ask yourself, who am I because of this? When you're devastated and you answer that question, you're going to be like, I'm a big wreck. I'm a nobody. I suck. I'm nothing. Or I'm so angry. I could spit tacks. I want to choke somebody, right? When you're looking at it from the initial stages of grief, when you're in the shock, when you're in the anger, the denial, asking these questions, the answers will be different. But when you can move up the emotional scale, even to neutral, I call neutral curiosity. It's like, why did this happen? Like, who am I because of this? What has really changed? How has my perspective changed from this? Do I feel any different because of this? What do I now know that I didn't know? How did this benefit me? That question's very triggering in the beginning. What do you mean, how did this benefit me? This didn't benefit me. There's nothing beneficial about this. This is all horrible. You're in the land of all or none. There's no land of and. It's just that there's no benefit to this. But as you move up the emotional scale, you get into neutral zone, like -1, 0, +1. How did it benefit me? Well, life wasn't perfect in this position. I can see where. Or maybe this is encouraging me to go from an AP position to a lead principal position. Maybe I was a little too comfortable. Maybe I was just kind of sitting back because I just knew how to do the job and I wasn't taking as much initiative because what I really want is to, like, I need a little bit more. I'm ready for more. Or maybe I'm in a lead position, but I jumped in and I got in so over my head and wasn't able to manage it. Maybe an AP position feels right at this time. Not that there's more or less work, it's just different work, mind you. But it might feel more aligned right now. Or maybe you move from an elementary to a middle or a middle to an elementary. There's all kinds of movements you can take, but why might this benefit me? Truly. Why might it be a part of my path? Who am I becoming? Who do I want to become? In what ways am I handling this? Give your horn some toots. How are you handling this? How are you proud of yourself for handling it? Which ways maybe I wasn't so proud, but now that I'm aware of that, I'm going to adjust. What skills have I learned? What am I expanding? A lot of the skills you might learn is your capacity to emotionally regulate. To emotionally regulate, to mentally manage your mind, to observe your thinking, to separate out your thoughts from who you are, from your body, spirit, mind, soul, to see a degree of separation, that your thoughts are not who you are, but your identity is the belief systems you have about who you are, and that you can be anyone you want. You can be the person who got released and lands a job next year, a better job. You can. Who would you have to be? What would you have to think if that were true? Play with that. And I'll tell you something. This process is really continuing ed for life. It's a continual identity evolution. You will always be evolving your identity from non-walker to walker, non-eater of solid foods to eating solid foods, right? Not engaging in play to engaging in play, not talking to talking, not going to school to going to school, right? Writing, learning how to read, learning how to write, all of it. Your identity is constantly evolving. It doesn't end when we stop going to school. School does not evolve us as humans. School is just a chapter of our human development. It's a component, a piece, and a part of the experience. It's a piece of the pie. It's not all of it. And sometimes we speak to lifelong learning, lifelong learners, but do we practice it? Do we actively engage in it? Do we seek it out? Because learning is uncomfortable. Having to learn something new, having to learn something new on your computer. You know, when you first had to learn Power School or first had to learn your new evaluation system and it went from paper to and pencil to this, you're like, maybe I'm dating myself, but any new platform comes in, you have to slow yourself down and take time to learn it. Or a new initiative rolls out, you have to slow down and take time to read through the curriculum or the platform, whatever it is you're learning. But we learn for life, we develop for life as humans. And as educators, we want to be the example, the, the shining examples, exemplars of continually evolving our identity. And these programs are designed to help you with that, to guide you, to push you, because your brain, my brain, everyone's brain wants to, like, I'm good. I've learned enough for now. I don't like that discomfort. I don't want to have to learn a second language, or I don't want to have to learn how to dance, go in public and do that. Or I don't want to have to get out and speak in front of the school board. Like, it's uncomfortable. Oh, I remember being a teacher and we got observed, but I don't want to have to get observed as a school principal. I'm so glad those days are over. We don't want to rest on our laurels or hide. We create our identity and the power to continually expand it, to grow as a leader, to learn how to be more impactful. And just with curiosity, just exploration. How do we expand? My expansion looks different than your expansion, but there are some similarities. What can we learn from one another? How can we grow? How can we collaborate? What can we share? Share stories. I mean, my story of being released from my site position and being promoted up to the district was very painful. But I share it because I want it to serve somebody else, to help them and to expedite the amount of time they're spending in their painful story and allowing them to come into exploration and expansion. So you want to be the person who learns how to overcome this. And the way you learn how is to do it, to overcome it, to be the person in your identity. I'm overcoming this. I'm learning. I'm growing. I'm willing to take this risk. I'm willing to put my name back out there. I'm willing to feel rejected again, embarrassed again, disappointed again, all the yucky feels. I'm willing to do it again. One, I can handle them. Two, that's the cost. It's the price of admission to land the job, to feel disappointment when you get a no, to feel, rejected when you get a ghost, when they ghost you and don't give you any answer, to feel frustrated, to be exasperated when you have to go to 10 interviews and they're all no's. Can I handle it? Can I expand? Can I go for an 11th? It's taking control of the narrative, using it to empower yourself. So be thinking, who do you want to be as a result of being released in the most empowering way? Let's re-identify yourself as a matter of who you want to be and then take actions that align and confirm for yourself the person that you are. This is who I'm becoming. I'm becoming an empowered principal. I'm becoming a skilled leader. I'm becoming a leader of influence. I'm becoming someone who can overcome heartbreaks and rejections and releases and failures. And I will keep going. And the more often you ponder your identity and we think about, what do I want to be next? I think about this all the time. As an entrepreneur, it requires us to be the most disciplined, the most personally responsible and accountable. We have to show up 100 times more than we think we do, but we're always learning and evolving. I do most of the work in my business, the front end and the back end. The one luxury I have is I have a podcast producer. Everything else is me. All the content, all the social media, all the marketing, all the emails, all of the organization, the paperwork, the bookkeeping, financials, all of that. I do it all. I want to know how to do it so that one day, as our team grows and we start to coach and expand, I will know what they're talking about. I'll know because I've done it myself. So I want to identify as a leader who, before I delegate, I've done the work or I understand it so that I can delegate it accurately. I can delegate it successfully. But the more that we ponder who we are and who we want to become, the faster we experience competency, capacity, accomplishment, empowerment. This all comes down to your identity. It's who you thought you were, but who you're becoming. And the more time and energy you spend on who you're becoming versus who you were, you gain momentum, you gain traction. So there's an empowerment cycle going on here where we faced a huge obstacle. There was an obstacle on the road of our journey, and we hit a speed bump, we hit a detour, we hit, some fallen rocks. And it triggers us emotionally. But that trigger, that identity quake, it creates awareness. Whoa, like maybe you were driving on autopilot, boom, something hits, total breakdown, awareness is built. And now we're realigning. And that realignment is starting to build momentum because you were released. Now I am. Because I was released, I now know. Because I was released, because of that, this is who I'm becoming. Because of it. And what you'll start to see is that you start to almost be grateful that it happened. Because you picked the pen back up of your narrative and you started writing the ending of the book. You wrote the end of the movie. You wrote the end of the script. Because of this hardship, because of this identity quake, because of this release, this is how the story ends. They don't write the end of your story. You write the end of your story. You. You're the author. You are the screenplay. You're the screenwriter. You write this ending. So explore this. Allow yourself to expand. Expand your identity. Expand your ability to feel these feelings. Expand your ability to move past them. And expand your capacity to write the end of this story. Make it a good one. Have the most beautiful day. I will meet you here for day 5 of Released. It will be the culmination. Have a beautiful rest of your evening, and I will see you Wednesday at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Take care. Bye-bye.